Hi, everybody. My name is Sarita Scherpereel, and I am not your mother's realtor. And this is our podcast, Shit Just Got Real Estate. And as always, I'm joined by my best friend, client and colleague, Megan Osberger.
Hi, everyone. Today we have a great guest with us. And Sarita's been telling me and prepping me for this since we got started. So I want to introduce to all of you, Jason. He's our international real estate investing client.
Yay,
Hi,
hey,
Jason.
Hey, nice to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us today. I know we were talking a little bit in our pre-show about like how much, I just love talking to you. And I think when we first went to start out kind of like who we wanted to be on the podcast, I was like, oh, we have to talk to Jason because I just feel like you're really fascinating. But your real estate journey is interesting to me because now you're living abroad and you're purchasing properties still abroad, full speed during the pandemic, during all these things where the world's spinning backwards. So,
literally during the pandemic, the start of it, the week of it.
The week of it. Yeah, it was like you closed on that property here in Chicago and then like I couldn't find groceries for like a week because the world was spinning backwards.
It's February, yeah.
February and you saved me. So you got COVID on your side of the globe before we did here. And so you were the one that talked me out of my trip to Bali because you were like, I think this is going to be a thing. And I was telling Melissa, one of our attorneys, that like, I was like, he's always right about things. So if he's telling me this is probably going to be bad, I just held off on the trip, went to California instead. And then you were right.
Still have not gone to Bali.
And I still haven't gone to Bali.
Still stuck. Yeah.
So
cool.
Why don't we get started where you tell us a little bit about your first property and how you maybe got started in real estate.
Yeah, so got started in real estate in San Francisco, California. So I moved out to San Francisco and purchased my first place. It was July of 2005. So literally right before the housing market crashed. And at the time I did an 80-20 loan. I don't even think they do them anymore, right? Or do they? No? Okay, so 80-20 loan is 80% or 80% is the main loan, and then 20% is the ARM, or it should be your down payment, but you can finance it. So at the time I thought I was being conservative and I did a 7-year ARM on that 20%. And literally, like, it sounds crazy now. I was thinking about the interest rates that I paid at the time, but the 20 or the 80% of the loan was at 6.25, which at the time was good.
Yeah.
And the 20 was at 16.5%,
What?
which is crazy. Yeah. Yeah. And it was, it's as you hear it now, like when when people were selling you the loans, it was my first house. I didn't know any better. They said, oh, you just refinance in a year. And that's what you thought. You're just like, oh, fine. That sounds reasonable. Because then you refinance and then you don't need that ARM any longer. Because the upside on the house will basically be the down payment. So yeah, that was right. So that's how I got my start in real estate.
At least when you did refinance, I'm sure the rates were really low.
Yeah, no, it was good. Well, look, the funny thing too on that particular property was I'd done handyman stuff and throughout my life, but I'd never done like a full remodel on a property. So I went into that house. I thought, what the hell? Like, I can remodel it before I move in. So I literally left myself 2 weeks to remodel the house before I moved in.
Jason.
And oh no, it was nuts. It was nuts. But it was, it's those things you just do and you learn from it. So
I want to give 2005 Jason a big hug and also just shake him a little bit.
That was good. No, it was good. The thing about San Francisco though was that market stayed pretty stable.
Yeah.
So yeah, from there, I did a couple other properties in California. I did a multi-unit there, and then I did a vacation rental in wine country, which is north of San Francisco. And then after that, that's when we started working together in Chicago. So that was the multi-unit in Chicago. And that's when I was here. I came out here about 5 years ago for work. And I still had the real estate in California at the time. but I wanted to get involved more in real estate, and Chicago was like hometown for me. I went to school there. So I knew kind of the areas, but not investing in real estate wise. But so
And
yeah,
how
that
long
was the
had it
challenge, I
been
guess.
since you had lived here when we were looking to purchase that property together?
Um, oh, I guess it would have been 15 years.
15. Okay.
Yeah, 15 years.
Did you
Yeah,
find
so
that
I
like,
mean, the neighborhoods have changed completely.
yeah, that's what I was going to ask, like how much like of what you remember things to be when we were looking at properties, if there was ever, and I don't remember if there was, so help me remember that. Like, I don't think there was a lot of moments where I was like, you can't, this is maybe a place that you really want to focus on and kind of keeping
You,
things direct.
yeah. So when we first started working together, I remember you gave me some neighborhoods because I had asked you like, where should I look? And I remember you gave me some, and I think some of them did sound familiar and some of them didn't.
Mm.
And then I went online and just tried to find some. I researched neighborhoods from what I could find online, like what are the current like hot markets, and then what's up and coming type areas. But at that point, it was still all new. It was all the same on MLS. It was just the house was a house. It was a 300 or 4 unit.
Yeah.
I didn't know that much about the area.
Well, and I think a lot of people who hadn't lived in Chicago, so I've been here now 13 years. And when I first moved here, the West Side was not as developed as it is now. And I think for a lot of people who may have taken time away from the city are kind of shocked to hear that like Wicker Park and Bucktown are like what they are when 10, 15 years ago, even nobody was living over there. And it was where young Sarita used to go to party, and then no Ubers home. You take like the cab fare was going to be like $100 there and back. Like you just knew that was your night. And yeah, it was not the neighborhoods that we have now, which I think is kind of always, I think, interesting. But you came in to the city. So I've only met you technically one time.
We met the one time.
Ann Sather.
Oh, hey.
What it was Ann Sather. We went there for breakfast. Yeah. It was good. We spent that. We did. I think it was just one day, right?
Yeah.
We went and looked at, like 4 or 5 properties that day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In my car, just like moving around the city. Okay, so we did the purchase together here, your multi-unit, and let's talk a little bit about like kind of the finding the property, how that worked. It's weird. I asked these questions, but I was definitely there. I just want to reiterate to our audience in Topeka, Kansas. Well, no, like, I was definitely there.
Well, no, so like I think the way it worked, or way it went down was, I mean, we met, right? And you'd set me up with the neighborhoods. I mean, I knew the budget that I wanted. And then I tried to be realistic about renovations, right? Like, I think that's a big part if you're doing out of state or out of country investing is knowing what you want to get to on the backside with the remodel stuff too. Mm-hmm. Because finding a property is one thing, but managing like going through the construction phase of it, which I've done with 7 units now, living here in Taiwan, it can be challenging. And it can be challenging. So knowing that up front, and then knowing how much you're willing to get into that, and then looking at the neighborhoods, looking at the budget and all that stuff. So when we set up the MLS search, it was basically just a wide array of everything. And then I would go through the listings and try and find stuff that looked interesting. And then at first I was just feeling it out and just getting a feel for the market, what was out there, what you could get for the money, that kind of stuff. And then I would send you properties that seemed interesting. And then you'd go look at them and then send some additional photos or videos of the property. And then it took a long time though. I think it just took a long time because it was my first, like, not hands-on buy. So it took time to get used to that process. And then just a new market in general. But I think we got through it. I think what helped out for me was that you were sending the videos, and that was a big help for me
The
being here.
videos. I'm always so embarrassed about them. I even told you that one time. I was like, I don't know how you make decisions based on this like weird, janky, quick video, because I'm in it, I see it, I move fast. And I'm mortified that I'm not good at it. And you're making this huge financial decision off of this crap video I'm sending over. And then you shared with me some of the videos you got from your realtor and the other state you look and purchase in. And I was like, holy shit, I'm Martin Scorsese. I think at one point hers were like upside down, sideways. I was like, okay.
No, but this was a 7-unit building in northern Michigan. So we had done our property, and then this was the next building that I was looking at. And it was a 7-unit, so it's 5,000 square feet. I mean, the place is big.
Yeah.
And the agent went to go look at it, and I said, you got to take some videos. She's a bit old school, so she wasn't like, I knew she was going to have some problems doing the videos. And I think finding the right agent to do the buy abroad is critical, because you need somebody that's going to be able to do it. So so she sent the videos. And there's 2, and she sent them, and they were small. I was like, oh, what did she send? So I looked at it. Literally, it's like one of the apartments, and it's like half of it's the ceiling. Like, and you can hear her on the video. She's like, I don't know how to work this thing. And it's like panning around, and then it goes into the room, and it just cuts. And then there was one other video, and that was it. Yeah. Like,
you were like,
fuck it, I'll buy it. Like, I bought it. I literally bought it from those 2 videos.
Yeah. What's your international investing policy? Oh, just fuck it, I'll buy it.
I just really care what the ceiling looks like.
So she even made a comment. She said, oh, what a wonderful ceiling. It was a nice ceiling, but literally that was the only thing I saw.
That's so funny.
It worked out. You worked through it.
Yeah, well, you worked through it. I think for me, we got down to a formatting of like, okay, well, if I saw something, try to keep the videos short. I had a GoPro at one point. We had, which is not even up anymore, the Canon camera we tried at one point too. And then time after time again, no matter what I tried, how I did it, even trying to put it on like YouTube private view, we were still coming back to the iPhone and putting it on like a shared drive. Which I found like worked best for like the technology end of this, but also just trying to get you, because we basically had this shift in the market from when we started working together to where the beginning of the pandemic hit, and things move fast. So I didn't have time sometimes to be like, okay, now I'm going to take this from my camera, put it onto my computer, download it, then put it onto YouTube when like I'm obviously running around doing showings. But the property that you found that you actually purchased, I saw with another client, and I was like, hey, Jason, this thing has been on the market for a really long time. I thought it was significantly overpriced, but the market time and the purchase price, I just didn't feel like it was ever going to move. So I think we kind of worked together to try to create a deal based on our numbers and grounded in the kind of cash flow and the return that you wanted for the property. And that's, I guess, the one you ended up with.
Yeah. And I guess to in going through that process, to add, like, I think Google Drive was a huge
Yeah.
It was great for us to use because we could store the files there. And then I think also Google Docs came in really handy, especially when we were looking the last time, because we would put properties on there with links to the actual photos, and then we could have notes where we would, we could work back and forth and know which property we were talking about. And for me, it worked really well because, I mean, I'm complete opposite you guys. It's plus 10 hours. So it's almost like, it's my midnight now. So if we're, working on a doc, you can do it during the day, I can look at night. And just having it there as a consolidated place was better than back and forth emails and everything else. So it just made it work. It worked easier. I think for when I was looking at that property and trying to figure out if it was the right property, I think for me, the big thing from being here was using, there's tools you can use online. You can go through the photos and the videos that you sent, but I think a big tool for me too was like Google Street View. That's huge because I could drive around the neighborhood and look at the neighborhood, and you just
Yeah.
get a feel for the area. Like, what's in the neighborhood? Is it check cashing, or is it like a trendy coffee shop? Are there cars up on blocks, or is it, Mercedes Benz out front? Like, what
It's
is
been a
it?
long time since you've been here.
No, I know, but like, right. And I'm not talking specifically about Chicago, even. Like, I use it for wherever I look for property.
But I think that's really
And
important for buyers that are even here in Chicago to hear that, because the market's moving so fast right now that sometimes people aren't necessarily taking the time to even look at a neighborhood maybe they're kind of familiar with, but they don't know the street, or they don't know like the vicinity of where the property is at.
Yeah. The one thing too I saw on the Street View. So with Street View, just small tip, you can go and look at the history of the view as well. So it will always default to the current, but you can go back a couple of years and look at what did it look like the year before, depending on how.
I knew that, but I don't actually know how to do it. But I've seen other people do it. I knew someone knows how.
Jason's from the future, but he also understands the past.
Jason's
well, the cool thing about the neighborhoods, when we were going through, I forget the neighborhood, it was one that was kind of up and coming, but where I found that view helpful was I would go and look for dumpsters in the neighborhood, because then there was remodels going on, and you could literally see them out in front on the street, and you could go through the different views, and it just helped because you could. And then you look at the restaurants in the area or the shops in the neighborhood. Have they changed, or are they the same? That kind of thing. And just, you can use the satellite view. There's a lot of tools like that just help that if you are remote, or like even if you're at work, you can do it from work, just so you don't have to be feet on the street and looking at the property.
Right. And when you're looking at the pictures of a unit, what is it that you like to check for? Or, I mean, I know I've been with you when you make your videos, and so you're still highlighting the same kinds of things as in person, but for you, Jason, what are you looking for?
So from like the listing photos or like the videos from Sarita, I guess it would have been the same type of thing. A variety of things. I tend to look at, I block out like the color on the walls, right? The cosmetic stuff. That doesn't matter. I look at the flooring throughout the unit. So if you can get a feel for, is it wood? Can it be refinished? For the walls, usually you can tell from a photo or video if it's plaster or if it's drywall. Just if it's wavy or if it's smooth, and you can usually tell the difference. If it's plaster, it's going to come up in the inspection report, but it's kind of a first clue to maybe the wiring hasn't been done, probably the plumbing hasn't been done. I mean, if it's plaster, usually, even if they did some electrical, they likely did do all of it, because there's just stuff that they can't get to. So, and that could be, some knob and tube, some aluminum, some copper. It could be a variety of things, which if it's new drywall, and you likely, I mean, chances are if they did new drywall, why wouldn't they do new electrical and plumbing? I'll also look at just the outlets on the wall. Are they brown? Brown mean just the color from like the 60s, or are they 3-prong or 2-prong? Then it's a grounded system. And then go through the photos of the bathrooms, the kitchens, and that kind of stuff, and look at for like the kitchens, look at the cabinets. Like, maybe they're not great looking, but are they full wood where they can be painted pretty easily, or are they the, what do you call it, the plastic layer on top? Laminate. Laminate. If like those, you can't paint, and those are, I mean, they're gonna die soon, so you got to replace them. So just look for stuff like that. Those are look for the big cost things. Usually for like a multi-unit, they're going to have photos to the mechanicals. A lot of agents put those in. So the water heaters, the furnaces, the air conditioners, even the electrical panel, and just look at those and try and get a sense for the year. And then you're probably not going to get, a photo of the roof, but see how the condition of that. I mean, a lot of that stuff does comes up in inspection, But these are just things that I'm going through the photos. I'm mentally trying to calculate what is it going to cost me
Sure.
to fix these units up. And then I can look at the rent. What is the rent increase going to be if I do those things? That kind of stuff. And then it's create an overall picture for the building.
Right.
And then drive around the neighborhood and see what it looks like if there's cars about blocks.
Yeah.
Well, and you have a very sophisticated level of remodel for like the work that you've done at your properties. So oftentimes here in Chicago, we have many hands that have touched these properties over the course of the lifetime of the property. So we would constantly see things that had just a mishmash of all different types of renovation and updating. And so trying to find some like kind of cohesive threads of like, okay, what do I need to do to make this cohesive for myself to get the type of return that I hope that the property is able to get.
Right.
Yeah, it's tough. To do the math on what makes the most sense for a return too. I fall into that trap a lot, especially being here. Like I just did a remodel on the places in Michigan. So this is kind of funny. So I did the remodel on the places in Michigan. So it's a three unit building. If I can do it, I make them super nice. I don't know. I don't like the half-ass stuff. So I did these units super nice. Like they're condo level quality, but this is Northern Michigan. This isn't Chicago. So like I posted them for rent, and there's like Facebook groups that you can post them in, and the comments were just hysterical because they think I'm insane for the amount of money that I want. But like I feel that there's a market for it up there.
Yeah.
But like, anyways, I tend to overdo, and then on some of the units, and then do it in a commercial grade way where they're going to last for a long time.
Right.
Durable, modern, sleek.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Not waste money, but do it right if you're going to do it.
Well, and I think coming from the California market to the cost of things, at least here in Chicago and maybe a little bit too in Michigan, the last COVID really had a lot of things spinning backwards. Material was hard to get, especially like here in Chicago, we did have plywood, windows were hard to get, back ordered cabinets at some places, and capacity was harder to get. And when we were first, like I mentioned, when we were first working together, this was pre-pandemic. So the cost of things shot up too during the pandemic. I know you did a rehab of one of the units of the property you purchased here. Did you have any issues with that and working through labor cost and supply costs?
Not in Chicago. I didn't run into issues. I ran into some issues on the other buildings, mainly with labor. It was labor and supplies.
Yeah.
I think it was one of the units that I bought had, the windows weren't great. And I knew that going in, and I knew I had to replace them for the tenants before winter happened. And it just wasn't possible. I couldn't order the unit or the windows. But I mean, in that case, the tenants understood, and I was able to get them finally. But it was mainly the labor shortage that I ran into. The one 3-unit building that I mentioned, it took me a year to renovate 3 units.
Yeah.
Which it should have been like a month and a half or 2 months maybe, but they just couldn't get the help. And it was usually like the plumber couldn't come, and then it just got delayed for like a month, which then holds up the drywall, which then holds up everything else. The snowballs.
Well, 2005, Jason would have laughed at a year. Cried.
2005.
2005, Jason's like, I did this 3 weeks.
I had 2 weeks to do this. Now you're telling me it's going to take a year for 3 units?
I learned my lesson.
Let's talk about trust a little bit when you're looking at the renovations. I think contractors, God bless them, but they do get like kind of a bad reputation for being untrustworthy, or it's hard to find trustworthy contractors or subcontractors, subcrews, general contractors, all of that. Just a terrible reputation when it comes to that. Now you're abroad, So you are not going to be able to look at somebody in the face and get a feel for them. Everything is kind of done in another dimension from the future. So, I just kind of want to have some perspective of like, how do you, I hate the phrase size someone up, but like, how do you get, your instincts going of like, okay, how am I going to trust this person? Can I trust this person? Is it reputable? What's your process like for that?
I think to go one step back, and it's a lesson that I learned for the Michigan market. So in Chicago, you have, a ton of different property managers that you can work with, assuming you don't want to manage it yourself. You want to outsource it, which for me, I mean, it's mandatory. I have to find a property manager.
Right.
But when I got the properties in Michigan, it's a small town or a smaller town, and I just assumed there was property managers there and decent ones. So I bought the buildings going on that assumption. And I think that was the wrong path at the time, because I purchased I purchased the duplex. A duplex was the first property I got there. And then I quickly learned that there were no good property managers in town. And I think if I were to do it again, I definitely would use that as like a first step, is find a good property manager. And I say that before I answer the question about contractors, because for me, the property manager is a critical part of that, where I can use them also to be the person that goes and sees the actual contractor at the property. Like who I found helps me out tremendously with my properties. Like they manage a lot of that, and they're able to go and meet the people, get the quotes, that kind of thing.
That's really great insight.
Yeah. And if they do it, like the property manager that I found, now that I have so many properties, I don't get upcharged, but even if I did, I that would be fine. Because I think with some of the Chicago property managers, you have to pay for them to manage some of those services for you, which is fine. I'll do it from here. Like it's just, it is what it is. But that's helped a lot. But as far as how to pick a contractor, I've gotten burned in the past. When I first started with some poor contractors, I think it was a variety of trust. I had too much of it, and I didn't have a lot of the stuff in writing. And like with the contract stuff, it's just like if you run into the wrong contractor, they won't put everything in writing intentionally.
Yeah.
And then that's where you're gonna get burned, where they just cut corners in the end when you go in and you thought one thing and it's another, where it's not what actually happens. And I'll give you one small example. I did a remodel in San Francisco of an apartment, and it was a huge window in the front, and I was putting in a new window, same size window but just replacement. And I got there after they installed it, and they put a single pane window in there. I was like, what the hell is this? Like, why would you put in a single pane window? Well, of course they did, because it was like half the price. But if you had a contract and you wrote down that it was supposed to be a double pane window, all that, specifics, I would have never had that problem. But I've learned the lesson with stuff like that. But I think if you can find people to trust, like that's the biggest, and then find them and keep them. If you can find a good electrician, and I would just keep them. And if they want to raise their rate, I would pay it. And I wouldn't, unless you get a referral for somebody else that's as good, because it's just not worth it. Yeah. I've gone both ways in that regard, though. General contractors, and just do the like finding a plumber direct. For me now, for Michigan, I have a general contractor that sits on top of it all. So they work with the subs and manage that piece. But yeah, I think it's finding somebody you trust and just stick with them.
Yeah. No, it's so hard too. I mean, I think that even clients who are here checking work, we did a podcast with Mike Vicini talking about his renovation of a single family home that took him, I think, like 2 years almost to complete. And he as basically a professional flipper developer, does this stuff so often. But with a single family home, it was just constant. And I think oftentimes, at least from what I hear from other people, is that they, yes, didn't have things in writing to begin with, but also their gut told them when things were going wrong that, like, you know, this is not looking so good, before they got into the corner they were backed into. And then once they were backed into the corner, it was just like trying to navigate that out was really difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess California really set you up then for like a greater lesson of learning. And maybe that also helps you with the other projects that you did in the future.
I think, I mean, there's some things about California real estate that make it hard. And yeah, like I showed you the disclosure packet.
Yeah, I remember we
California.
used to kind of butt heads with the disclosures and stuff. And you're like, well, do they have to disclose this? Do they have to disclose that? And I'm like, we get a tiny, it's like 2 sentences of like, is this property good or bad? Check yes or no. And like, that's the disclosure. And then Jason sends me over this packet of disclosures from California, page after page of like item after item specific to the property, all the way
Really?
down, disclosing everything.
That's so interesting. Yeah. I mean, for anyone listening who doesn't know, you have it's like literally a 1-pager, I think, of like 20 yes and no, or this doesn't apply. And then you have like the radon lead, which are like, do you have radon and lead? Do you know you have them? And
Yeah. Do
everyone's
you
like,
know? Do you know?
everyone's
what
like,
the
I don't
issues are?
know.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, and of course, like people do disclose stuff that they know. It's not like everybody in Chicago is a criminal, but
Not everybody.
not everybody, not us.
Not us. Not the transplants.
And- oh my God. I apologize to my daughter who was born here.
My name is Sarita. I like to alienate an audience.
Yeah. But that's really hard to imagine that you could get that much information. Like as someone who's bought here, I can't imagine that at all.
And then you coming from that.
Well, that was the surprise. I remember when we first started working together, I was like, where's the disclosure packet? And you're like, it's like lead paint and
like,
yeah,
it's right here.
There's no asbestos.
They said no.
One sheet. They say there's nothing wrong with it.
It's 700 years old and it's all fine.
Just don't eat the
No,
walls.
you have to disclose everything, which for every property that I did, I over disclosed everything. For the first house that I sold, it literally had, I kid you not, the dates that I changed the light bulbs. That was documented. Every single thing that was touched with that
Jason's
house
my favorite.
was documented.
Mhm.
Yeah. It'll come back to you if you don't. Like I document everything. The disclosure packet for the last single family house that I sold was over 100 pages of text. Yeah. Yeah.
I just can't believe that.
Mhm. My job here is cushy. Well, and I think
it's good and it's bad though, right? Like
Right.
then there's no surprises. You know everything that has been done to the property.
but
And
stuff
I mean,
still comes
like,
up, you know, that's the hard part, is things are still going to come up moving forward.
Yeah.
Just because you have the disclosures in hand on that day at that time doesn't mean that something in the future isn't going to happen or be a bigger issue for the buyers.
Yeah. I almost wonder if that would give you more of a false sense of security that your house won't break, because it will. Everybody's house will break at some point. I don't know.
yeah. You know everything.
Maybe I'm
that's
just
been
saying
done.
that to make myself feel better.
We're trying to feel better about
Yeah.
ourselves, Jason. Thanks for going here.
But like if you, as an example, like if I had a neighbor, even a neighbor that was loud, that liked to get drunk and went out on his patio at midnight on Tuesdays and sang, I would have to disclose that, because that would be, you know, something that would be problematic for the new person buying the house.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah.
I did not know
Yeah.
that.
I think this is why we get so many buyers from California right now. I've had 4 this last year. So since COVID, or like maybe last summer or something, I've had 4 California buyers that have come from California.
And they say, all I want is to buy a house where I don't know if the neighbor gets drunk on Tuesdays and sings on the front porch.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like
No,
so
it's,
surprising.
yeah. But yeah, when you go and look at a place in California, that's the first question that you ask. Like if you're interested, you would ask for a disclosure packet. Where
Yeah.
before, when I in 2005, when I was buying the first one, they would literally give you a stack of that. So if you wanted a disclosure packet, that's what you'd take home to read. I mean, now it's PDFs that they just email to you.
Of course.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah, I remember I felt like sometimes, especially with, when we first got started, where, the disclosures were so different, the types of renovation, permits, not permits, repair and replace, and all of this is so different from the environment you came from. I think too, that's kind of maybe what took a little bit of time to kind of fine tune our process together. And then also how it equates to like what you get here in Chicago for the purchase price and the amount and all of those things. But it was still like a really fun journey, I will have to say. Okay. So, I mean, I guess in a nutshell, we've talked about kind of all the things that high level that we wanted to talk about. One thing that I think is really fun that I got from you was kind of nicknaming properties, which I know they do on HGTV, but I did the most with you because we would see so many together. The ones that stuck out are usually really, really good or really, really bad. So we had nicknames for properties to kind of help us remember the property and kind of talk about it. And one of my favorites was the Golden Girls, which was
yes.
a house that looked like the Golden Girls lived in it. Laura Ashley came to decorate, and it had been the same wallpaper I had probably from like 1993 with my family when I was in the 3rd grade, and it's basically stuck. Do you find that helpful when you're talking about properties to have those nicknames?
That was a first, I'll be honest. But no, but I mean, it helps, right? Like for us to talk about the properties. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think when we had a list of so many, because when we were looking at the properties, you would cycle through 10 and then, some would sell, some just you didn't like anymore. And then there was the ones that stuck and the ones that you were going to put an offer in on when it came time. And for those, it helped to have a name aside from an address to remember them by, for sure. But yeah, it helped. Yeah. And then for me, like the time window was different for me too, because if we found the property, it wasn't that I could put an offer in right away. I had to wait because I was doing a 1031 exchange for that in that particular time.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that's right. When the nicknames really became, because we were marinating on things, trying to figure out when and the 1031 timing was going to work on it. That's right. Yeah, you're right. Because we didn't really, for the first purchase, like pre-COVID, that time frame, but we also were just turning through properties so quickly. So like most of them didn't work. I remember 2 that we kind of still would talk about that we actually saw on your day you were here in Chicago that were just kind of sitting on the market forever, which is weird to talk about this because so much life has happened since you were here that the market's not even like that anymore. Like most things move pretty quickly if they're new, especially like the kind of stuff that you like. So it's just really interesting to be like, oh yeah, we used to see properties and then we think about it for like a couple of weeks. I'd be able to send you all the stuff, but then it started when you were thinking about doing the 1031 here, that's when things started moving really quickly where there wasn't a lot of time. Yeah. And some things I'll have to call like a spade here. Like some stuff kind of like has, especially after like the shift of COVID, where we used to be able to think about things. And then the listing agent will be like, oh, we have multiple offers, or we have an offer that came in. And I'd be like, bullshit, this thing's going to sit here for a while. And then it would go under contract and I'd have to like eat my feelings. It's just,
she'd have to,
I'd have to talk to my food about my feelings. So it was just like such a shock, I think to a lot of buyers and to agents, including myself, that, things had changed so much. Okay. So Jason, you have only seen one of the properties you currently own. in
No, that's not true.
person? How many?
Zero.
Zero.
I sold the one
Because
that
you
I
sold
saw.
it.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
now
no, I
it's
sold the one.
none.
I had a duplex. That was the only property that I saw. So now it's zero.
Zero properties. So everything you currently own, you have never seen in the flesh.
That's true.
That's wild.
Do you talk
Yeah.
to your food about your feelings at night?
It's, you know, I've gotten used to it in a way. And
Mhm.
then not to go back to the contractor conversation, but like, it's just funny because we'll be doing a remodel on a property and the conversation would be, oh, you know, like in that back area where like the doors like this. And I'm like, no, I have no idea what you're talking about. I have no clue. I've never seen a photo of that room. Like, it's like that happens like weekly when we do this stuff. But it's funny. But I've gotten used to it. I'm coming back in the summer, so I'll be able to do the tour of as many as I can. I mean, they're rentals, so I can at least see the outside of them.
Yeah.
But
Awesome.
I feel like the end of your HGTV show.
Yeah. So I think this is going to be the longest
Move the
reveal
truck.
for you. Yeah. You're going to like walk into these and be like, Sarita, what the fuck did I buy? Like, it's good. I promise, baby. Especially like the coach house you have at the property you own here in Chicago is so nice. Like, I think so many buyers right now, like that would be like such a dream for them to have. I'm teasing. Like, I love that property. It's one of my favorites and probably one of the nicest coach houses I've ever sold. But it's still, I'm going to have anxiety when you do get here and see these things. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for talking with us today, Jason. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been cool. Yeah, I think for anybody that's interested in buying real estate from abroad, like I would say it's not that hard. Like if you went back 20 years in time and try and do it back then, it would be impossible. Like I would have not done it. But now there's so much you can do online, from document signing to everything. Just it's not that hard. The only thing is you just can't see it.
Yeah, but you're right. There's so many resources in person.
Yeah.
There's so many resources that have shifted and changed. And then even with COVID, more things becoming virtually acceptable, whereas they used to be, as they were much more difficult to have like an international closing with an international buyer. But now with COVID, where they don't want realtors at the closing and they want to keep, as few people part of the process as possible, it's actually made things so much easier in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it has. It's you can find it all online now, which makes it super easy. I can't wait until Matterport, the 3D company, right? I'm assuming they're developing the VR
I'm sure.
open houses. So like that will make things, I could just do a VR tour from here, and then it will completely be a game changer.
Yeah.
But even with photos, it's a good enough.
Jason, I feel like that's going to cut me out of a job though. Are you sure you don't want any more of this?
No, that's not true.
Scorsese. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, thank you so much for all the laughs. So yes, our podcast, It Just Got Real Estate. We are wrapping up here now with Jason and Megan.
Yes. Thank you so much for your time.
Everyone, for listening.
Yeah,
thank
absolutely.
you, Jason, for all your time, and check us out on next week's episode and follow us on Instagram. My handle is Sarita Sells Chicago. I'm literally looking at my assistant because I don't know. I've had many identities in my life. There was improv at one point. I don't remember. And I'm looking right at Kayla going, what is it? Help, please help. All right. Well, we'll check you soon. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.